Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. Novak Djokovic wins his 7th Wimbledon title, his 21st Slam, and his 4th consecutive All-England Club trophy to beat Nick Kyrgios in 4 sets in a very entertaining final, I have to say. It didn't disappoint in terms of the skill level, and I think just the general excitement around it. It was a very good watch, I have to say. We're going to break it down post-match, and of course, I'll be doing a more in-depth review of the whole tournament for the men's and women's side to make sure you keep an eye out for that. But we're just going to focus on the final and post-match. Guys, as well, remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. If you're a podcast listener or watcher, remember to leave a rating review, and we really do appreciate it. Okay, let's get into it. Novak Djokovic wins 4-6, 6-3, 6-4, 7-6. A similar pattern to the Cam Norrie semi-final, but the difference was every set was competitive. Every set was competitive. It was an extremely good watch, and Nick Kyrgios brought a very high level of tennis, but Djokovic left his best tennis for the biggest moment at the Wimbledon final against someone who he holds an 0-2 head-to-head record in going into the final, and he got revenge, and sweet revenge as well. But their first ever best-of-5 meeting, first ever meeting on grass. And Novak Djokovic showed why he's won here 6 times and why he's so good on grass and so tough to beat and why he hasn't lost a match in over 4 years at Wimbledon. Let's break it down set by set because I feel like it's going to be quite interesting to talk about. There was a lot going into it about how well Kyrgios would serve and how much Djokovic might struggle with the return of serve. And then also in the rallies, it was, well, okay, the longer the points go on, the more chance Djokovic has in the longer rallies, right? We're going to go through some of the stats as well, of course, later. But I'm going to break it down set by set, and then we'll chuck it. We'll kind of dive in to the stats for the match as well. So let's talk about the first set. Nick Kyrgios. He played really well, I thought. And the best thing for me and the most impressive thing for me was his mentality. He didn't start having outbursts with his box or anyone else. He was pretty dialed in for me. And it's one of the most concentrated sets of tennis I've seen from Nick Kyrgios. And it's a set he won. I don't think that's a coincidence. In saying that, Novak Djokovic is kind of renowned, I think, in the last couple of years for potentially starting slowly or slower than he normally would against opponents that he's maybe faced quite a few times. And Kyrgios, he hasn't faced quite a few times. It's only been twice in 2017, 5 years ago. And so it took him time to adjust. The same thing with Cam Norrie, who's only faced once in the ATP Tour Finals last year, over 2 sets. Not really much of a sample size for him to work on. So it took him time to find his rhythm, for sure. So we can put down the first set to Djokovic trying to find some rhythm, but Kyrgios playing really well and mentally being dialed in as well. He served fantastically well in the first set. Djokovic struggled a lot on the return. And that kick serve, especially on the second serve, and even the first serve at times, a bigger kick serve, you could say, to the backhand, on the ad side was very effective. The kick serve down the tee on the juice side, the second serve, again, he got some success from it. Whether it was a missed return or a backhand into the net or into the tram lines or a shorter backhand, which you can then step into. That was impressive. His ability to come forward as well, and I guess willingness to come to the net was good throughout the whole match, but especially in that first set. And we'll look at the net points as well, because I feel like in that first set, I could be wrong, he was coming to the net pretty effectively, but let's have a quick look. So 5 out of 7, which is really good. Right, and 14 winners to 4 unforced errors for that first set. That's such a clean set of tennis from Nick Kyrgios. Less unforced errors than what the best player ever to make the least amount of unforced errors in a tennis match, which is Novak Djokovic. So 1 less error, 6 more winners. Very, very impressive. And the biggest thing as well, look at that, no break points to save. He served incredibly well, easy holds for the most part. The only hold that was difficult was serving out the set. Before we get on to serving out the set, I want to talk about Djokovic and how he got broken. And there's not really too much to talk about because in the end, right, he ended up winning the match. But if he hadn't won the match, he might have looked back to that set and that game where he got broken in that first set. And it was 2 double faults that did it. There was a double fault earlier on in the game. And Kyrgios was good, I think, attacking the second serve in the first set as well. proactive, and I was quite impressed, especially in the backhand-to-backhand rallies early on that first set and part of the second set. He was winning a lot of the backhand-to-backhand rallies, which was really, really interesting. The backhand slice as well was really good. He kind of went away from it a bit more as the match wore on, and I kind of wish he'd used it more because it was quite effective at times. The backhand slice, that is. On top of that as well, he was able to somehow outlast Djokovic in a lot of the points. And there was a stat, and I think it was just after the first set, where they played, I think it was 10 points past 9 shot rallies. So 10, 9 plus shot rallies even. Kyrgios had won 7 out of the 10. Would you expected that going into this match? Of course not. But that's just the way that he was playing. He was able to grind with Djokovic somehow from the back of the court and have success. He was playing very intelligent tennis, going behind Djokovic a lot of the time, getting him on the stretch and then being clinical in big moments for the most part in that first set. Djokovic then really gifted him the break, I have to say, with that double fault. And then he double faulted on break point down. Kyrgios did really well and worked hard for the break point. But I think he'll be disappointed, Djokovic, to get broken the way he did, to double fault the way he did. And Nick Kyrgios then went on to serve out that first set. Now, that wasn't without his trials and tribulations. He was 40-love up, or 40-15 up. He got pegged back to deuce. He didn't have to save any break points, which if he did, who knows, maybe it could have been different. But he did close it out, and he closed it out very, very well with some massive serves. And I have to say this, I think it was an ace to finish it off down the tee. 2 aces down the tee, I think, to finish off that first set. Bang, bang. And it got him out of trouble. And that was fantastic to see because we wanted a competitive match. A lot of people wanted 5 sets. If you weren't supporting either player, you definitely wanted 5 sets. And I thought he was putting his best foot forward. But then from the second set onwards, there was a change. Djokovic got an early break in the second set. And it really came from Kyrgios blowing certain games and blowing them from being in 40-15 or 40-love positions. And it happened in the second and third sets. In the fourth set, of course, no breaks of serve. So we can focus more on the second and third sets. Then I'll talk about the fourth set tiebreaker because I feel like the fourth set was a pretty good serving clinic from both players. The second and third sets, when he got broken, there were a lot of juice games for Kyrgios in the second and third sets. And a lot of juice games coming when actually he was either 40-love or 40-15 up in the game. He should have been doing better. Now, of course, there was this infamous, argument with his box where you're shouting at his box saying, why do you keep on being quiet at 40-love, 40-15? The game isn't over. You need to cheer me on or kind of, be loud and vocal and support me in those points because it's not over yet. Right. And I keep on going to juice and struggling. And he was kept on going to juice and struggling because he's making unforced errors. There were some fantastic inspired points from Djokovic, of course, as well. But for the most part, he should have been closing those games out. He should have been easily anyway. He closed the majority out, apart from, of course, the one break in each set. And that's what will disappoint him, I think, because in those games, he should have been better. He should have been better. Now, in the second set, if I'm not mistaken, the break of serve was actually at love 40 or 15-40. It wasn't at, he wasn't actually 40-love up. But you could tell that Djokovic was reading the serve better. He had pretty much, not no vision, but his ability to anticipate the Kyrgios serve in the first set wasn't good. In the second set, though, Kyrgios, I think he then kind of started to vary it up a bit more. Djokovic, especially with the serves down the tee, was reading them really well. I thought I was really impressed, and not just with his returning in the second and third sets and second set onwards, but how he was able to return with depth. It wasn't just, I'm just making this return back into play. No. It wasn't. He went from, I'm struggling to make any returns in, and actually, if I do, it's probably going to be short, to I'm actually getting a high proportion now of the first sets back into play, unless they're kind of inch perfect into the corner aces, and I'm getting it deep, either down the middle or kind of pushing Kyrgios back. And there's a lot of instances where Kyrgios was trying to come forward on the serve, and Djokovic was so good with the return that he was having to kind of like dig it out with a forehand and just push it back into play, or he'd go into the net. And Djokovic won a lot of points like that on the return. It was a returning masterclass from Djokovic. And the kick serve, He's still like, I still think it's something that isn't his biggest strength for sure. But for the most part, he managed to manage it. He managed to manage it. He ended up making a lot more returns. He went cross court. He went safe with it, fine. But he went deeper, and there were some crucial points where he actually managed to completely crunch the second serve return back at Kyrgios. And Kyrgios came to the net with one of them, which was a kick serve in the middle of the box, though, and out wide, but it wasn't in the corner. It wasn't deep enough. And Djokovic just said, that's not good enough. And yeah, it's a kick serve, but I'm probably the best returner ever. Just because I struggle. Sorry, let me start that again. Just because I struggle to return the kick serve as good as my other returns doesn't mean it's a bad return. It's not. It was a fantastic backhand, and Kyrgios struggled on the volley. And he did that throughout the second to fourth sets. There were a lot of points where Kyrgios came to the net, and he didn't have success because Djokovic made it really hard for him, either because the approach wasn't good enough by Kyrgios or because Djokovic did really well defensively on the slide, stretching, almost splits, not quite, on the forehand side or backhand side. And majority of the time, he doesn't have to hit a slice. It's a drive back and a drive forehand. Sometimes he has a forehand slice, but on the backhand side especially, he doesn't. And we saw, of course, that incredible point against Sinner on the run where he was doing the splits and hit him and crossed him and hit a cross-court passing shot on the backhand side. He is capable of doing that. That's for sure. So let's have a quick look actually at the set 2 and set 3 and set 4 net points won, because I'm interested. See, 2 out of 4, he stopped coming to the net as much. Interestingly, right, for Kyrgios in that second set. Third set, he came to the net 10 times, only won 4 net points. Right, what a difference from the first set, 5 out of 7. Set 4. Came to the net 13 points, still only 8 points won, though. Now, this is a part of his game. This is one of the best parts of his game. On top of the serve and, the forehand, he's got some incredible kind of moving parts. The ability to come to the net and finish points off of the net and the great hands that he has is one of his biggest strengths. Djokovic nullified it. Incredible. Just incredible defending from one of the best defenders ever as well. So it was a clinic from Djokovic after that in terms of defensive ability and returning ability. Kyrgios had his chances, though. He did. I don't want to write him off because he definitely had his chances, because Djokovic serving at 5-3 in the second set was love 40 down. Kyrgios had 3 breakpoint opportunities. He blew them. He did blow them. One of them was unreturnable or an ace, and that's fine. That will happen. But the other points, he threw them away, really. Bad choices at the net, coming forward to the net and not good enough, like drop volleys or drop shots. And he ended up having 4 breakpoint opportunities because he opened up add-up as well when Djokovic did go to juice. And then Djokovic, in the end, held and took the set 6-3. And I can only think if he takes one of those 4 points and he goes back onto serve, I reckon we go 5 sets. That's not to say Kyrgios wins, but it just shows, right? And that's the difference between these guys, i.e. someone like a Nick Kyrgios, and Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, right? These GOATs. Nick Kyrgios, I would say, and you guys might not agree, I reckon skill level, just pure skill level, is just as good as those guys. Pure skill level. But the mental side of things and managing the big points well is not his forte. It's not. Whereas for those guys, they are mental giants. They handle the big points, the pressure points, the best out of anyone. I would say he's not even a tier below that. He's 2 tiers below. There's other players that handle it better, like a Medvedev, potentially. Maybe even a team when he was at his best. Kyrgios is probably got better level than those guys, I reckon. Because as I said, I reckon his level's above those guys and at a Djokovic's level, but his mental capacity is not always there. If he had the mental capacity he had in the first set for every single set, he would have given himself the best possible chance. That's not to say he didn't play some really good tennis. He did, because we'll go through the stats and you'll see that, the stats back that up. But in the big points, Djokovic was better. And how many times have we said that about Djokovic in so many matches? Did he play his best level of tennis? No, but it was definitely a better level of tennis, I personally think, than what he had to bring to the final last year against Berrettini, where I thought he played kind of B-level tennis. I reckon he played, if we're saying A-star is his kind of maximum level, the best kind of match I've ever seen him play, I reckon maybe it is A-, between an A- and A maybe, maximum. So he was playing some really good tennis, for sure. But mentally a giant. And then the third set as well, I think he'll be disappointed to get broken when he did. It was at 5-4, and he got broken at 5-4 to lose the set. And again, he was 40-15 up. He was 40-15 up. Djokovic broke him when he was 40-15 up. Bad choices from Kyrgios, and he had a meltdown, and it killed him. Absolutely killed him. And that's why we go into the fourth set, and everyone's thinking, oh, no, Kyrgios, what have you done? And it was Kyrgios, what have you done? It really was. So, look, I mean, there are some fantastic points, especially some of the the tweeners that Kyrgios was playing, very entertaining. Djokovic as well. He was fantastically good, I thought, at the net, especially the drop shots he dragged. I think in terms of tactically wise, the returning out is a fantastic point to bring up. In the backhand to backhand exchanges, though, he got a lot better. He, I think, started to drag Kyrgios out rather than defending down the middle, which he will do a lot and go deep. I think he realized that wasn't really hurting Nick much, and Nick wasn't making a lot of mistakes in those instances. So he thought, okay, I'm going to drag him out. And he would go, rather than going backhand cross deep into the corner, he'd actually find these fantastic angles cross court on the backhand. And Kyrgios isn't comfortable getting dragged out and hitting shots on the stretch like Djokovic is, or on the run like Djokovic is. He wants it in his hitting zone. He wants to be able to kind of step in and do it. He doesn't want to be in uncomfortable positions, and that is uncomfortable for him. Same with the forehand to forehand exchanges. He started finding great angles, and he started being able to win majority of those points. An interesting stat as well is that I think it was around 64% of shots in the first set Kyrgios was hitting were backhands. In the second set, it was 50-50. Djokovic started changing it up. Rather than just going backhand to backhand, he started being more confident hitting the backhand on the line. And he would go for it. And he didn't necessarily... What is so impressive about Djokovic is that he gives himself enough margin that more often than not, he's not going to miss that shot. He's going to hit it 95 times out of 100, and he's going to hit it with great depth. It's not quite exactly down the line, but it's directed well enough that Kyrgios had to hit a forehand. And it was so hard on kind of down the middle-ish between the service tee and the tram lines in the middle of that Kyrgios would have to hit a forehand, and he made quite a few errors trying to flick the forehand cross court because of it. Djokovic is like the master of doing that. And of course, we saw some classic Djokovic backhand down the lines, which are just picture perfect, clipping the lines, fantastic. But in the rallies, when he knows that, okay, I need to break an opponent down, he's so good at doing that and just moving them around, but in increments. And he does so well. He's so good at conducting the point so that he's dictating, so that he's the one that's moving the chess pieces. Kyrgios is almost playing in spurts. Djokovic was moving the chess pieces throughout the points for the most part after that first set, that is. In the first set, it was Kyrgios. But I almost feel like he started to lose the exchanges from the back of the court, the longer points, because of it. Djokovic just became a lot better, missed a lot less, and generally was hitting the ball a lot cleaner, and Kyrgios wasn't able to stick with him, I think. And that's why Djokovic started to have a lot more comfortable service games generally, and Kyrgios started to have harder ones. And that's why we ended up having that second and third set, I guess, play out the way it did. Then if we look at the fourth set, both guys served really well, which was great to see. And I'm not going to talk about the fourth set too much apart from the tiebreaker. Kyrgios had a horrible tiebreaker. I mean, he went 6-1 down. And I did say that if this is the Kyrgios that we're going to see, the Kyrgios that I wanted to see was the Kyrgios who has played tie breaks the last couple of matches against like a Nori. Sorry, not Nori. A Tsitsipas, for example. He played a really good tiebreaker against Tsitsipas in that last set to win it. Against Djokovic, he played the tiebreaker how he's been playing it at the start of Wimbledon and throughout pretty much most of this year, which is, I'm in a tiebreaker. I'm going to self-implode a little bit. And he kind of did. Now, the first point I think is excusable because he hits a double fault because he's trying to go big on the second serve. And he didn't miss by much. It was very, very marginal. So that's fine. I get that. But after that, he was just error after error after error. And he was moaning and shouting his box. I'm just thinking he is gone. 6-1 down. Serves, two massive serves. And you're just thinking if he'd served those one big ace, I think it was one unreturnable, you would have been in a better position. You wouldn't have been 6-3 down. You would have been maybe 4-3 down. And you just think, use your head, right? And I feel like he just kind of mentally broke down a little bit. Now, Djokovic just played the tiebreaker perfectly. Played it perfectly. Served really well. I just think the way that he conducted the points, he knew, okay, Kyrgios is frustrated. He doesn't want to be in this tiebreaker. I can break him down by hitting the ball so deep and sticking with him and making him hit uncomfortable shots, dragging him out wide, getting him on the run. He's not going to like it. And he didn't. He didn't like it. So, he's the master. He is a master tactician, is Novak Djokovic. And what he did is he adapted. And I've said it so many times, he does adapt so well. He really does. And actually, someone on Twitter, and I've got to give credit to Amy Lundy, said, my 4 Ds of Djokovic's dominance: depth, direction, defense, and demoralization. So depth is one. We know how well Djokovic hits the ball in terms of how deep he's able to hit his ground strokes. Deeper than anyone else, in my opinion. Direction. He's able to drag opponents out using angles, exactly like he did against Kyrgios. Defense. How good was he defensively for the most part? Kept on making Kyrgios play an extra ball after extra ball after extra ball. And Kyrgios, shook his head a couple of times because he was like, how have I not won this point earlier? Especially then on the return games after the first set as well. Incredible. And demoralization. We saw Kyrgios shaking his head a couple of times. There was a point in the fourth set where Djokovic didn't get the break. Kyrgios was serving at 5-all. And it was 15-all, if I'm not mistaken. And Djokovic gets to a drop shot, and it's a drop volley from Kyrgios, and it's a good drop volley as well. Djokovic gets there and just dinks it cross court. He barely gets there, but the ability to manipulate his wrist and racket to just guide it cross court and dink it is incredible. It was such a good shot. It was special, and you just thought that could inspire him to get the break. He didn't, but he didn't need it because he wins on the tiebreaker because that's just how good he is. So Novak Djokovic, I can talk all day about this match. Kyrgios, though, showed a really good level. He really did. I'm going to go through the stats and then we'll wrap it up. So for the match, and you can see that 30 aces, which is a really good showing from Kyrgios. And someone in the chat, when I was doing the live stream commentary, said Kyrgios needs to hit 30 aces or more to win this. They said over 3 sets, though, so he didn't quite do it. But it was an impressive serving display from Kyrgios. And of course, and I really wish they would add this stat, and hopefully they will in the future at some point, the unreturnable serve count. I want that as a stat as well, because he hits a lot of unreturnable serves, a lot, where the opponent gets a racket on it, but it's just too good. Similarly, though, I think for Djokovic, it was one of his best serving displays. I can see the 7 double faults there, and I get that, and he was trying to go for a second serve more. But in terms of his first serve, I thought it was sublime for large periods. He barely had to worry about his service games for pretty much most of the final. 15 aces. It was clinical, and it was almost reminiscent of Roger Federer quite a few years ago at Wimbledon, where he was able to hit his spots and was just inch perfect with a lot of the first serves. And Djokovic has got to that stage. It's such an incredible weapon now, the serve. And look, he's worked on it over a number of years throughout his career. And it now has got to a stage where it is, fantastic. If we look at the first serve percentage for both, very impressive from Kyrgios. 73% is really high. 63% from Djokovic is solid. But the big difference is here. First serve points won, 83% for Djokovic. Kyrgios not able to really harm Djokovic at all behind the first serve return. Struggled a lot with that. Something to work on for Kyrgios. But for Djokovic, I mean, look at that. Kyrgios has got an incredible first serve. Only 70% of first serve points won. That means Djokovic won 30% of return points won behind the first serve. How good is that? Incredible. Second serve points won. 53% for Kyrgios, 61% for Djokovic. Very good from Djokovic, especially given I would have expected Kyrgios to attack that better and also have a lot more success behind it as well. But look, I mean, he just defends so well. And then breakpoint saved. And this is what will come back to haunt Kyrgios, is the fact that he had 6 breakpoints, only took 1. So Djokovic doing so well to manage those breakpoints on his own serve. And then won 2 out of the 4 breakpoints he had on Kyrgios' serve. So just clinical from a clinical player. Winners to unforced errors, 46 winners to 17 unforced errors for Novak Djokovic, which is just unreal. So what's that? About 2.5 winners to 1 unforced error, like incredible ratio. For Kyrgios, just under 2 winners to 1 unforced error ratio. 62 winners to 33 unforced errors. Net points won 60% for Djokovic. Both players very good at passing their opponents at the net or lobbing, and just making it difficult, keeping it low. So that's understandable. And Djokovic's game, I would say it's not. When you think of Djokovic and his strengths, it's definitely not a weakness, but I wouldn't say it's his strength either as part of his own game, that is, in comparison to other facets he has. 56% for Kyrgios, which he'll be disappointed with. Again, Djokovic, an incredible passer, incredible defender, but again, something that he backs himself on, so that would have been disappointing. And then if we look at kind of the rest of it, I mean, it's just one of those things. You just look at it and just think Kyrgios will be disappointed. He'll be very, very disappointed. Distance covered is interesting and just shows, right, 2,633 for Djokovic, 2,828 meters for Kyrgios. He had to work hard. And that's why at the end he said, I was tired. And they asked him, look, do you want to come back? Is that your goal to be here again? And he said, oh, not really, I'm tired. But then after he said, look, maybe one day, he knows he wants to be there again. I hope he continues to play, and hopefully we do see him go deeper at Grand Slams. Djokovic was incredibly gracious in his post-match speech as well, talking about how Kyrgios is so talented and he really thinks that he has made it click and can go deep at Grand Slams now going forward. And on top of that, he was really good, I think, about congratulating people. He's very charming, Djokovic, and has a fantastic champions speech. I think it was a really good listen, actually, and watch. And I have to say I was very impressed with it because his speeches can not always hit the way that maybe like a Nadal or Federer's have in the past, and that's why I think a lot of people maybe have that perception. But for me, it definitely did this time. I was very impressed with it, and maybe it's because we saw more of a jovial side to him as well, joking with Kyrgios about the bromance and everything. And I thought that was so impressive from Djokovic, and I have to say, just incredible. Absolutely incredible. For Kyrgios as well, really good in terms of the way that he, I think, addressed not just Djokovic, very gracious in losing, but even the line, like every official, he said line judges, chair umpire, ball keys, he said, we don't have the best of relationship, but you know what? Thank you for putting up with me. And I thought that was absolutely class. Absolutely class from Nick Kyrgios. Really, really impressive. And, it's great to see him get so deep. And I hope we do continue to see him deep. For Djokovic, though, he marches on. 21 slams, 1 behind Rafa. The hunt is on for who ends up on the most Grand Slams. Who's going to win it? Who knows? But I'll see you guys in the comment section and for the full reviews of Wimbledon. Thank you so much, guys. Stay safe and well. Let me know your thoughts as well. And we'll see you on the next video.